Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. Doing too much at once is a recipe for disaster. The antidote is building resilience one step at a time. Today, we'll show you how. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Too often we wait until we're near collapse before we start to do anything about our well-being. That's according to Fleur Heazlewood, a leadership expert in healthy high performance. Rather than squeezing in time for ourselves once everything else is done, instead, she says, we need to make space for ourselves as a priority. That way, we'll function at our best, which is good for business and home life. Fleur is author of Resilience Recipes, Making Space for Wellbeing That Works. With 20 years of experience in resilience building, she offers practical tips on how to build resilience and manage daily stress. First, Chris Ashmore asks Fleur whether COVID has made us more stressed than ever before.
Well, one of the things that's really interesting is that our brain really doesn't like uncertainty, challenge and change. And what happens is this activates our fear response. So given everything that we've been going through with COVID, new ways of working, health challenges, social restrictions, and then on top of that, fires and floods, it's pretty fair to say we are experiencing a lot more pressure and stress than what we've been used to. And while COVID has provided us with more flexibility in the ways we work and communicate, which supports our well-being, it's also put pressure on our recharging and downtime. So a lot of people aren't taking their leave, either because there hasn't been anywhere to go or someone's been sick or it's been cancelled. So we're seeing this real, mix of extra pressure but not enough breaks to let the steam out.
We hear of this term, the work-life balance. What do you think of that term? Is it helpful?
Personally, I think it's extremely unhelpful, and my perspective is very much that life and well-being is much more about boundaries than balance. And by considering work-life balance in that sort of like set of scales type of approach, it's not really helpful because it gives the implication that we either have work or we have life satisfaction, but we don't have both. So we're setting ourselves up for failure. And the reality is that work is a part of our life. Sometimes it can be a little bit all-consuming, but I think looking at life and well-being as a wheel within which life is a part, just as family or health or career or finances is a much healthier way of considering our well-being.
And well-being itself, how do you define well-being?
So the challenge is that there is no universally agreed definition of well-being. Amongst our researchers, our scientists, our academics, our medical practitioners. So, if you kind of can't define it, it makes it pretty difficult to sort of like know what to do to improve it. But for me, a good starting place is feeling good and functioning well. Because then each individual can then choose for themselves what those elements are that make them feel good, and those elements are that make functioning well useful for them.
Well, in your book, you encourage readers to go through their own individual wellbeing assessment. What is that assessment? Can you briefly summarise it?
It's a lot easier to start with the aspects of wellbeing that we care most about. So in Resilience Recipes, what I'm doing is guiding readers through a simple process or a set of questions to help them identify what is really important and to create their own wheel of well-being and be able to then assess what is working and what isn't for themselves. And then what the book does is sort of like helps to cut down the sea of wellness information, out there, and guide people just to choose the 1 to 2 either self-care or resilience strategies that are going to be most helpful for where they are at.
Any examples of a strategy that could work?
So for example, if someone is really struggling with work pressure and work stress, learning some coping skills, some breathing strategies to diffuse stress, for example, is a really simple 5-minute technique that you can learn to start to take the pressure off.
So what's that exactly? Sitting at the desk, say, and closing your eyes and breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth? How does it work?
Breathing is fantastic. It's one of the simplest and most straightforward, techniques or gifts that each of us have. So simply sitting at your desk, closing your eyes and breathing in and out from your belly, which is sort of like where your diaphragm sits, as opposed to your chest area where most of us hyperventilate when we're stressed, and focusing on extending our exhale as opposed to gulping in big gasps of air when we're feeling a bit stressed or frantic, will actually change us out of our sympathetic nervous system and move us into our rest and digest system. So it is really as simple as breathing in through the nose, but also out through the nose as opposed to the mouth. That's a yogi thing, I think. And really focusing on moving our breath and deepening it and slowing it from our belly. And literally in 2 minutes or 3 to 4 conscious breaths, we can actually drop our whole nervous system down and move out of our stress response and lower our cortisol levels. It's really, really cool.
Well, your book is called Resilience Recipes. How does being more resilient help boost well-being?
So when you increase your overall well-being, it's a lot easier to manage the stresses and the bumps and lumps as they approach in life, and also to keep a balanced perspective over what's important and what's not. And research actually does show that building our resilience capability skills does boost our well-being. We just need to pick the right strategy for what's going on for us at the time.
Any other ways that people can build their resilience?
So if you're experiencing challenge with, let's say, with your energy, actually taking time to regroup and think about how you start your morning. So starting with a few deep breaths, getting up and moving your body. So going for a walk around the park, making sure that when you start your day at work, you've got a big jug of water by the desk, which hydrates you as opposed to a big cup of coffee, which dehydrates you. So if you're struggling with energy, it really helps to focus on some of those physical and mental health types of things that are going to support you.
You mentioned what to do in the morning, but what about during the day as we hit a lull in energy levels? Is there anything that you suggest that we can do to recharge ourselves?
Yeah, so it's important that we start our day intentionally. So that's where some kind of movement and some kind of open mind intention setting practice will work. But also during the day, research shows that we have quite good concentration levels or productive levels between 70 and 90 minutes. So working in bursts of 60 to 90 minutes and then actually taking a 5 to 10 minute break away from the screen and away from your desk, where we get up and we move, where we stand, where we take some stairs, where we go and get a glass of water, is really important. And even just taking these small little 5 to 10 minute breaks will make a really big difference in terms of our energy and our ability to last the distance. The other thing that I find is really helpful is starting your day, if you have a standing desk, by standing for the first hour's worth of your work. I find that most people struggle standing all day, so that's certainly not what I'm suggesting. It is important that we take our seated rest breaks as well as we need it. But you'll find you have a lot more energy if you start your day by standing.
And nighttime, Fleur, what routine works to help us unwind?
Yeah, it's really important that we create some routines or rituals that help us switch off from the busyness and the mental processing and get both of our mind and our body ready to relax and for sleep. So it starts by turning off screens, reducing noise, reducing light, reducing that stimulation, whether it be the TV and so forth. Things like switching to a fiction book or a book that you read just for enjoyment in old school hard paper as opposed to on another screen. Taking a warm bath, maybe taking candles into the bath as opposed to having bright light. And I guess one of the big ones as well, giving yourself around 2 hours to digest your last meal before you're heading to bed. So that's going to help your body. I talked about rest and digest before. It's going to help your body to move into rest as opposed to continuing to work on digesting.
That was leadership expert Fleur Heazlewood. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow at BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily Podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.